In the heart of an otherworldly galaxy, where stars shimmered like diamonds scattered across velvet skies, there stood a royal palace that defied imagination. The structure itself seemed alive, its spires reaching toward the cosmos as though yearning to touch the heavens. It was crafted from a luminous material unknown to human eyes. Smooth and warm to the touch, it radiated soft hues of gold and silver under the light of twin suns. This was no ordinary palace. It belonged to Queen Vaelithra, ruler of the Zorathian Empire, whose beauty and power were whispered about in awe throughout the universe. The queen's presence commanded reverence. Her skin glowed with a radiant golden hue, her eyes shimmering like liquid starlight. She moved with grace unmatched by any being, her every step echoing authority tempered by wisdom earned over centuries. Around her neck hung the Celestra, the sacred jewel said to hold the essence of their people's strength and unity. Her armor, forged from the rarest metals found only on her homeworld, gleamed with intricate patterns that told stories older than time itself. Each curve and etching symbolized victories won, sacrifices made, and promises kept. Yet for all her majesty, Queen Vaelithra was not without curiosity about those who served her. Among them was a human named Elias Thorne, a clumsy yet earnest manservant plucked from Earth during one of the Empire's diplomatic missions. He had been chosen not because he excelled at anything particular, but because his awkward sincerity amused the queen. To her, humans were fascinating creatures, fragile yet resilient, flawed yet capable of profound loyalty. And so, Elias found himself thrust into this alien world, tasked with mundane duties while surrounded by wonders beyond comprehension. Elias wasn't entirely sure how he'd ended up polishing the queen's armor. One moment, he'd been scrubbing floors in the grand hall, marveling at the way the walls seemed to pulse faintly with life. The next, a stern-looking attendant had shoved a silken cloth into his hands and pointed toward the towering suit of golden armor standing near the throne room entrance. "Polish," she'd snapped before striding off without further explanation. He approached the armor cautiously, half expecting it to come alive or perhaps disintegrate if touched improperly. Up close, it was even more stunning than he'd imagined. The metal surface reflected the ambient glow of the palace, casting shifting patterns onto the floor. Elias ran a finger along one of the etched designs, feeling the faint ridges beneath his fingertips. For someone used to cleaning rusted tools back home, this felt almost sacrilegious. "Right?" he muttered to himself, gripping the cloth tightly. "Just pretend it's, I don't know, a really fancy bike helmet." With exaggerated care, he began wiping down the armor, starting at the chest plate. First, everything went smoothly. The cloth slid effortlessly over the smooth surface, leaving behind a brilliant shine. But then, as he worked his way up to the shoulder guards, something strange happened. A faint hum filled the air, low and resonant, like the first notes of a symphony played on instruments he couldn't name. Startled, Elias froze mid-motion, his hand hovering just above the armor. "What the?" he whispered, looking around nervously. No one else was nearby, and the sound didn't seem to be coming from outside the room. Slowly, he lowered the cloth again, brushing it lightly against the armor. The hum returned, louder this time, accompanied by a subtle vibration that traveled up his arm. His heart raced. Was this normal? Had anyone warned him about singing space armor? Before he could decide whether to stop or keep going, footsteps echoed through the corridor behind him. Panic surged through Elias. Dropping the cloth, he spun around, nearly tripping over his own feet in the process. Standing there, framed by the opulent archway of the throne room, was Queen Vaelithra herself. Her expression was unreadable, her glowing eyes fixed intently on him. "Human," she said, her voice carrying a weight that made Elias feel impossibly small. "Do you know what that means?" For a moment, Elias thought she meant the humming noise. He opened his mouth to stammer out some excuse involving static electricity or maybe alien cleaning products. But then he noticed the look on her face. A mixture of shock, disbelief, and something else he couldn't quite place. It wasn't anger exactly, but it wasn't approval either. "No, Your Majesty," he managed to choke out, bowing deeply despite the fact that he still clutched the now-damp cloth in one hand. I was just trying to do my job." Vaelithra took a step closer, her movements slow and deliberate, like a predator circling its prey. Yet there was no malice in her gaze, only an intensity that made Elias wish he could melt into the floor. She reached out, her slender fingers brushing against the armor where he'd been working moments ago. The hum grew louder, reverberating through the chamber like a heartbeat. "This is no ordinary act," she murmured, almost to herself. Then, turning her piercing eyes back to him, she added, "You have invoked the ritual of accordance." Elias blinked. Once, twice. Sorry, what?" She sighed, the sound both exasperated and oddly amused. "It appears I must explain." "Very well. The armor you've touched is imbued with ancient sigils, a language written long before your kind walked upright. When polished with genuine intent, it awakens a bond between wearer and servant. Promise of sorts." "A promise?" Elias squeaked, his voice cracking embarrassingly. "What kind of promise?" Queen Vailithra tilted her head, studying him as though deciding how much to reveal. Finally, she said, "A vow of protection, loyalty, sacrifice. By touching the armor in such a manner, you have unwittingly pledged yourself to me, not merely as a servant, but as a guardian bound by honor." Elias stared at her, dumbfounded. "But I didn't mean to. I was just polishing." To his surprise, the corner of her mouth twitched upward ever so slightly. "Intent matters little compared to action, human. Whether accidental or deliberate, the ritual has been enacted. You are now tied to me, and to the fate of my empire." As the gravity of her words sank in, Elias felt a cold sweat break out across his forehead. Bound? To a queen? An alien queen, no less? What did that even mean? Would he be expected to fight battles? Wear matching armor? Learn how to hum properly? Before he could spiral further into panic, Vailithra raised a hand, silencing his unspoken questions. "Fear not," she said, her tone softer now. "Such bonds are rare and treasured among my people. They bring great responsibility, yes, but also great privilege. Consider yourself fortunate." Fortunate? Elias wasn't sure he agreed. Still, he nodded weakly, too overwhelmed to argue. As the queen turned and strode back into the throne room, her cape trailing behind her like molten gold, Elias slumped against the wall, clutching the cloth like a lifeline. "Well," he muttered under his breath, "this day just got a whole lot weirder." Life in the palace became a whirlwind after that fateful encounter with the queen's armor. Word spread quickly among the staff. Humans whispered nervously in corners, while the Zorathians exchanged knowing glances, their faces unreadable masks of intrigue. Some treated Elias with newfound respect, nodding solemnly as he passed. Others regarded him warily, as though expecting him to sprout wings or spontaneously combust. Despite the mixed reactions, one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same. Queen Vailithra wasted no time integrating Elias into her daily routine. Gone were the days of scrubbing floors or fetching refreshments for dignitaries. Now, he found himself shadowing her everywhere, from council chambers where debates raged over interstellar trade routes to private gardens, where she meditated beneath crystalline trees that sang softly in the breeze. At first, Elias struggled to keep up, stumbling over unfamiliar customs and accidentally addressing her as "ma'am" instead of "your majesty," more times than he cared to admit. But Vailithra seemed patient, or perhaps amused enough by his antics to let them slide. One afternoon, they ventured into the Hall of Echoes, a cavernous chamber lined with floating orbs that pulsed with memories. Each orb contained fragments of history, preserved for future generations. Vailithra paused before one particularly large sphere, its surface swirling with images of distant wars and triumphant celebrations. She gestured for Elias to approach. "Observe closely," she instructed, touching the orb gently. Instantly, scenes unfolded before them. Soldiers clad in golden armor fighting alongside comrades dressed in simpler attire. Their movements were synchronized, almost instinctual, as though connected by an invisible thread. Elias watched, mesmerized, until realization dawned. "They're bonded," he murmured. "Like me." Vailithra nodded. "Yes, these are the tales of those who once bore the same vow you now share. Study them, human. Learn what it means to stand beside greatness and what it costs." Though daunting, these lessons weren't without their lighter moments. During a formal banquet held in honor of visiting ambassadors, Elias accidentally knocked over a tray of luminescent fruit, sending glowing orbs rolling across the polished floor. Mortified, he scrambled to retrieve them, only to slip and land flat on his back. Laughter erupted from the assembled guests, but to his relief, Vailithra simply arched an eyebrow and quipped, "Perhaps we should rename you Clumsy Guardian." Even the stoic ambassador from the Kryn collective chuckled at that. Despite the humor, Tension simmered beneath the surface. Not everyone welcomed Elias's sudden elevation. One evening, as he wandered the palace corridors, lost in thought, a group of Zorathian attendants cornered him near the library. Their leader, a tall woman with sharp features and an even sharper glare, stepped forward. "You think you belong here?" she sneered, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're just a primitive creature playing dress-up. You'll never understand our ways." Elias swallowed hard, acutely aware of how outnumbered he was. Summoning what little courage he possessed, he replied, "Maybe I don't, but I'm learning. And if Queen Valithra believes in me, maybe you should too." The woman snorted but said nothing more, signaling her companions to retreat. As they disappeared into the shadows, Elias leaned against the wall, exhaling shakily. Challenges like these reminded him why he needed to prove himself, not just to others but to himself. Back in his quarters later that night, Elias sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at the cloth he'd used to polish the armor. It lay crumpled in his lap, innocuous yet somehow monumental. He thought about the Queen's words, about bonds and responsibilities, about sacrifice. Though terrified, he couldn't deny the spark of excitement growing within him. Whatever lay ahead, he knew one thing for certain. His journey was only beginning. Days blurred into weeks as Elias adapted to his new role, each passing moment bringing fresh challenges and revelations. One morning, he accompanied Queen Valithra to the Grand Observatory, a dome-shaped chamber perched atop the highest tower of the palace. The ceiling was transparent, allowing an unobstructed view of the swirling cosmos above. Stars twinkled like fireflies trapped in amber, while nebulae painted the sky in vibrant hues of purple and teal. In the center of the room stood a massive holographic map projecting the entirety of the Zorathian Empire, its borders marked by pulsating lines of light. Valithra gestured for Elias to join her at the edge of the platform. Below them, advisors bustled about, adjusting controls and analyzing data streams. She pointed to a cluster of planets near the outer rim of the Empire, their markers flickering ominously. "The Xylarii threat grows stronger," she explained, her voice tinged with concern. "They seek to expand their territory, disregarding treaties and alliances. If they succeed, chaos will engulf this quadrant of the galaxy." Elias frowned, trying to grasp the enormity of the situation. "What can we do?" Her gaze softened, though her jaw remained firm. "We prepare, and you, human, will play a part." With that, she led him to a training arena nestled deep within the palace grounds. Here, warriors honed their skills using weapons unlike anything Elias had ever seen. Blades that shimmered like liquid mercury, staffs emitting crackling energy, and shields that seemed to bend reality itself. Under the watchful eye of Commander Thalric, a grizzled veteran with scars etched into his metallic skin, Elias embarked on a rigorous regimen designed to transform him from bumbling servant to capable fighter. The first few sessions left him bruised and battered, his muscles screaming in protest. Yet despite the pain, he refused to give up. Every strike, every parry, brought him closer to understanding the bond he shared with the Queen. During one particularly grueling session, Thalric tossed him a pair of gauntlets forged from the same material as Valithra's armor. "Wear these," the commander ordered. "Feel their weight. Let them guide you." As soon as Elias slipped them on, warmth spread through his arms, followed by a strange tingling sensation. Suddenly, his movements became smoother, more precise. It was as though the gauntlets were teaching him, whispering secrets of combat directly into his mind. Encouraged, he pressed on, determined to master the art of battle. Meanwhile, the political landscape grew increasingly volatile. Rumors of sabotage rippled through the palace halls, whispers of traitors lurking among the ranks. Late one night, Elias discovered a suspicious figure tampering with the palace's main power conduit. Heart-pounding, he confronted the intruder, only to find himself face-to-face with Lady Serena, one of Valithra's closest advisors. "Impressive reflexes, human," she purred, her tone laced with mockery. Before Elias could respond, she lunged, revealing hidden blades strapped to her forearms. Caught off guard, he barely managed to deflect her attack, the gauntlets sparking as they clashed against her weapons. The ensuing struggle was fierce, each blow reverberating through the narrow corridor. Just when it seemed Serena might overpower him, reinforcements arrived, led by none other than Commander Thalric. Seething with rage, Serena spat venomous accusations, claiming Valithra's trust in a mere human jeopardized the entire empire. Though subdued and taken away for questioning, Her words lingered, planting seeds of doubt in the minds of some. Amidst the turmoil, Elias found solace in unexpected places. In quiet moments between training sessions, he sought refuge in the palace gardens, where bioluminescent flowers cast ethereal glows upon winding paths. There, he often encountered Lyria, a young Zorathian healer with iridescent hair and a penchant for storytelling. She regaled him with tales of legendary guardians who had risen from humble beginnings to shape the course of history. Her words inspired hope, reminding him that even the smallest actions could ripple outward, creating waves of change. Their friendship blossomed, providing Elias with a sense of belonging he hadn't realized he craved. Together, they explored hidden alcoves and secret passages, uncovering treasures long forgotten by time. Through Lyria, Elias learned nuances of Zorathian culture, the significance of ceremonial dances, the symbolism woven into tapestries, the delicate balance between tradition and innovation. Each discovery deepened his connection to this alien world, making it feel less foreign and more like home. Yet, as much as he cherished these moments of peace, Elias couldn't shake the looming shadow of conflict. Reports poured in daily, detailing skirmishes along the border and escalating tensions with the Xylarii. Valithra convened emergency councils, her expression grim as strategies were debated and alliances tested. Through it all, she maintained her composure, a beacon of strength amidst uncertainty. One evening, as Elias stood beside her on the balcony overlooking the capital city, bathed in the dual glow of sunset and starlight, he voiced the question weighing heavily on his mind. "Your Majesty, what happens if we fail?" She turned to him, her eyes reflecting the vastness of the universe. "Then we rebuild, rise again, fight harder. For as long as there are those willing to stand together, united by purpose, there is always hope." Her words resonated deeply, igniting a resolve within Elias that burned brighter than any star. Whatever trials lay ahead, he vowed to face them head-on, side by side with the Queen and the people he had come to admire. For better or worse, his destiny was intertwined with theirs. A story still unfolding, chapter by thrilling chapter. As the days stretched into weeks, the palace buzzed with an electric anticipation, the air thick with whispers of impending conflict. Queen Valithra spent countless hours strategizing with her military commanders, poring over star charts and battle simulations. Yet amidst the preparations, Elias couldn't help but notice a shift in her demeanor. The usual confidence that radiated from her like sunlight dimmed slightly, replaced by a quiet pensiveness. It was subtle, almost imperceptible to anyone else, but Elias, bound to her through the mysterious ritual, sensed it keenly. One evening, after dismissing her council early, Valithra retreated to her private chambers, a sanctuary rarely visited by anyone save her most trusted confidants. Curiosity gnawed at Elias, but propriety held him back. Until, that is, he heard a soft melody drifting through the heavy doors, haunting and melancholic. Against his better judgment, he pushed them open just enough to peek inside. There she sat, perched on the edge of a crystal bench beneath a canopy of glowing vines. In her hands rested a small instrument resembling a harp, though its strings shimmered like liquid light. Her fingers danced delicately across them, coaxing forth notes that seemed to echo straight into Elias's soul. The music carried a sadness so profound it made his chest ache. Yet it was also achingly beautiful, like watching a dying star explode in a final blaze of glory. Unable to resist, Elias stepped fully into the room. "Your Majesty?" he ventured softly, unsure if interrupting was wise. Valithra paused, lowering the instrument to her lap. "Guardian," she acknowledged, her voice steady but tinged with weariness. "I did not expect company." "I'm sorry," he stammered, immediately regretting his intrusion. I heard the music and—" "It is all right," she interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. "Come closer." Hesitant but obedient, Elias approached, stopping a respectful distance away. That song. It sounded sad. A ghost of a smile flitted across her lips. "It is called The Lament of Eternus, a tribute to a fallen hero who sacrificed everything to protect our people. Sometimes, when the weight of leadership becomes too much, I play it to remind myself why we endure." Elias nodded slowly, absorbing her words. "Does it help?" "In its own way," she admitted. "But reminders alone cannot ease the burden. The Xylarii grow bolder, their attacks more calculated. Our defenses hold, for now, but I fear what lies ahead." Her vulnerability struck a chord within him. Here was the mighty queen, stripped bare of her regal facade, grappling with fears and doubts like any mortal. It humanized her in a way Elias hadn't anticipated, bridging the gap between them even further. "You're not alone, you know," he said impulsively. "I mean, yeah, you've got armies and stuff, but you've also got me. Clumsy, awkward me. And whoever else cares about you. We're here. Together." To his surprise, Velithra chuckled softly. "Ah, human optimism. How quaint. And yet," she trailed off, her gaze softening, "perhaps it is precisely what I need right now." Encouraged, Elias took another step forward. "Look, I may not be some legendary warrior or super smart strategist, but I'll do whatever it takes to help. Whatever you need." Her expression turned thoughtful, as though weighing his offer. Finally, she rose from the bench, setting the harp aside. "Very well. If you truly wish to assist, then accompany me tomorrow. We journey to the Forge of Lumina, where the greatest artisans craft weapons of unparalleled power. It is time you understood the true extent of what you've pledged yourself to." Elias swallowed hard, excitement mingling with apprehension. "The Forge of Lumina? Sounds intense." "It is," she confirmed, her tone serious once more. "And dangerous, but necessary. Prepare yourself, guardian. Our path grows darker still." As dawn broke over the palace, bathing its golden spires in fiery hues, Elias stood ready, clad in simple yet sturdy attire provided by the royal tailors. Beside him, Queen Velithra waited, resplendent in her ceremonial armor, the sigils glowing faintly in response to her presence. A sleek transport vessel awaited them on the landing pad, its engines humming softly as attendants scurried about making final checks. The journey to the Forge of Lumina proved both breathtaking and unnerving. They soared through skies painted with streaks of auroras, past moons adorned with crystalline forests, until finally descending into a cratered landscape dominated by towering structures of obsidian and diamond. The forge itself loomed ahead, its entrance guarded by colossal statues depicting ancient heroes locked in eternal combat. Inside, the air thrummed with energy, the walls lined with furnaces blazing hotter than any sun. Artisans moved with practiced efficiency, hammering molten metal into shapes both familiar and fantastical. At the heart of the forge stood Master Calvin, a towering figure whose body appeared partially fused with the very materials he worked with. His eyes glowed with an inner fire as he greeted the queen with a deep bow. "Your Majesty," he rumbled, his voice echoing like distant thunder. "What brings you to my domain?" "We require enhancements," Velithra replied, gesturing to Elias. For him, Calvin's gaze shifted, scrutinizing the human with a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "A fragile specimen indeed. Are you certain this is wise?" "He bears the mark of accordance," Velithra stated firmly. "His worth is beyond question." Nodding reluctantly, Calvin led them deeper into the forge, where artifacts of immense power lay suspended in stasis fields. He selected several items, a circlet embedded with shards of starlight, bracers etched with runes of resilience, and a pendant shaped like a miniature sunburst. "These will fortify him," Calvin explained, handing the items to Elias. "But beware, such gifts demand sacrifice. They will amplify your abilities, but also test your limits." Elias accepted the artifacts, feeling their weight settle heavily in his palms. "I'm ready," he declared, though inwardly he trembled at the implications. As they prepared to depart, a sudden commotion erupted outside the forge. Alarms blared, red lights flashing as guards rushed to defend the perimeter. Without hesitation, Velithra drew her blade, motioning for Elias to follow. Emerging onto the battlefield, they faced a squadron of Xylarii invaders, their forms cloaked in shadowy armor that seemed to drink in the light. "Stay close," Velithra commanded, charging forward with lethal precision. Elias hesitated only briefly before joining the fray, wielding his newly acquired bracers to deflect incoming attacks. The clash was chaotic, blades clashing and energy bolts sizzling through the air. Despite his inexperience, Elias fought with surprising tenacity, driven by a fierce determination to protect the queen. Just when victory seemed within reach, a massive Xylarii war machine descended, unleashing devastating blasts that sent shockwaves rippling through the ground. Velithra shouted orders, rallying defenders while simultaneously engaging the behemoth in single combat. Elias, meanwhile, spotted a critical weakness in the machine's design, an exposed core vulnerable to concentrated strikes. Summoning every ounce of courage, he sprinted toward the monstrosity, dodging debris and enemy fire. Reaching the core, he unleashed a torrent of energy channeled through his bracers, the force of the blast knocking him backward. The machine shuddered violently before collapsing in a heap of twisted metal. Breathing heavily, Elias staggered to his feet, meeting Velithra's approving gaze. "Well done, Guardian," she praised, offering a hand to steady him. "You have proven yourself worthy today." Though battered and exhausted, Elias grinned, pride swelling within him. "Guess I'm getting the hang of this hero thing." Little did they know, however, that this skirmish was merely a prelude to greater trials awaiting them. Back at the palace, reports indicated increased Xylarii activity near key strategic points, suggesting a coordinated assault was imminent. Time was running out, and the stakes had never been higher. As night fell over the palace once more, Elias found himself seated beside Lyria in the tranquil gardens, sharing tales of the day's events. Her eyes widened in amazement as he recounted the battle, admiration shining brightly. "You've grown so much," she remarked, smiling warmly. "I'm proud of you." "Thanks," he replied, returning her smile. "Couldn't have done it without everyone believing in me." Together, they gazed up at the stars, silent witnesses to the unfolding drama below. Whatever lay ahead, Elias knew he wouldn't face it alone. United by bonds forged in fire and faith, they stood ready to meet destiny head-on. As the years unfolded, the bond between Elias and Queen Velithra deepened in ways neither of them could have anticipated. What began as an accidental ritual of accordance grew into a partnership rooted in mutual respect, trust, and admiration. Their shared battles against the Xylarii brought them closer together, their victories strengthening not only the empire but also their connection to one another. One evening, after a particularly grueling campaign that saw the Xylarii driven back to their borders, Velithra invited Elias to join her on the palace's highest balcony. The twin suns had just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, a reflection of the queen herself. She turned to him, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "Elias Thorne," she began, her voice soft yet commanding. "You came into my life by chance, yet you've become its greatest constant. Through your courage, your loyalty, and your unwavering heart, you've proven yourself worthy, not merely as my guardian, but as my equal." Elias blinked, stunned by her words. Before he could respond, Velithra knelt before him, an act so unprecedented it left him speechless. In her hand, she held a delicate circlet adorned with tiny stars that seemed to twinkle even in the fading light. "Will you stand beside me not just as my protector, but as my partner? Will you rule this empire with me, bringing peace and prosperity to all who dwell within it?" For a moment, Elias thought his legs might give out beneath him. He had always been the clumsy human plucked from obscurity, never imagining himself worthy of such an honor. But looking into Velithra's radiant eyes, he realized something profound. Love wasn't about perfection or titles. It was about standing together, no matter how different they were. "Yes," he whispered, his voice cracking with emotion. 1,000 times yes. The ceremony that followed was nothing short of legendary. The entire Zorathian Empire celebrated as Elias and Velithra exchanged vows under a canopy of floating orbs that glowed brighter with every heartfelt promise made. Dignitaries from across the galaxy attended, marveling at the union of a human and an alien queen, a symbol of unity in a universe often divided by differences. Even Commander Thalric cracked a rare smile, raising his goblet in toast to the newlyweds. Their reign ushered in an era of unparalleled peace and prosperity. With Elias by her side, Velithra implemented reforms that bridged the gap between species, fostering alliances and cultural exchanges that enriched the empire. Together, they dismantled old prejudices, proving that strength lay not in dominance but in collaboration. But their happiest moments came not in grand halls or diplomatic triumphs, but in the quiet joys of family life. Over time, they welcomed a brood of children, each one a unique blend of human and Zorathian traits. Their eldest daughter inherited her mother's golden glow and regal bearing, while their youngest son sported a mop of unruly hair reminiscent of his father's youthful days. The palace echoed with laughter as the royal children chased each other through gardens, played hide-and-seek among the glowing trees, and begged their parents for bedtime stories about brave guardians and wise queens. Elias often found himself marveling at how far he'd come, from scrubbing floors to ruling an empire alongside the most extraordinary being he'd ever known. And Velithra, for all her majesty, cherished the simplicity of their life together. Whether they were strolling hand in hand through the observatory or sharing whispered conversations late at night, she knew she had found her truest companion in him. Even Lyria remained a cherished part of their lives, serving as both advisor and honorary aunt to the royal children. Her tales of ancient heroes now included new chapters, those of a bumbling human who accidentally polished armor and ended up saving an empire, one awkward step at a time. Decades later, as Elias sat on the same crystal bench where Vaelithra had once played the Lament of Eternus, he reflected on their journey. The melody still lingered in his memory, but now it carried a different meaning. It was no longer a song of loss. It was a reminder of hope, resilience, and the power of love to transcend even the vastness of the stars. Beside him, Vaelithra rested her head on his shoulder, her presence warm and steady. "Do you remember the first time I played this for you?" she asked, holding up the shimmering harp. "How could I forget?" Elias replied with a grin. "You looked so vulnerable. It made me realize you weren't just a queen. You were someone I wanted to protect, no matter what." She smiled, her gaze tender. "And look where that desire has brought us. A peaceful empire, a loving family, and a lifetime of memories." As the twin moons rose high above the palace, casting silvery light over the tranquil gardens, Elias leaned in to kiss her forehead. They had faced countless challenges, fought battles both literal and metaphorical, and emerged stronger for it. Together, they had forged a legacy that would endure long after their names faded into legend. In the end, theirs was a story not of conquest or glory, but of two souls finding each other amidst the chaos of the cosmos, and discovering that happiness was the greatest victory of all.